Well, ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to the 10th already, Annual Executive Talent Management Forum. I'm happy to have you all here, and it's nice to know that there are some usual suspects. I know that there are some people who never missed one over these 10 years. They're not going to get any prize, though. Of course, as well as some of our new participants. All of this really reiterates the importance of our events and the conversations that we have during our forum. The previous 9 events on talent management were dedicated to the issues of talent management with regard to millennials, organizational culture, workforce analytics, exclusiveness versus inclusiveness in talent management, automation and employment, the fluid workforce, great resignation, and the role of artificial intelligence in managing organizational talent across industries. Today's event will focus on what organizations must do to deploy, develop, and retain talent when faced with economic uncertainties, geopolitical shifts, technological and environmental disruptions, and evolving employee expectations. This forum will explore how businesses can build a resilient workforce capable of adapting to rapid changes. We do have an exciting program ahead of us, full of useful information and interesting discussions. You'll also get a chance to ask questions, provide valuable insights. Only valuable insights are accepted, by the way. And share knowledge with fellow attendees. Let's get ready and begin, I would suggest. First, I would like to thank our sponsors. And I would like the representatives to stand up right now, and then we'll give them a round of applause at the end, right? Sage Publications, Meisner Corporation, PennyMac, the Port of Huanimi, Economic Development Collaborative, later, City of Thousand Oaks, and Ventura County Economic Development Association, VCEDA. Thank you very much to all of you. Okay. Please, now let's look at the agenda. Right now, we're starting right now, obviously. Then we'll have welcome from our General Counsel and Dean's introduction. We'll also follow. Then I'll do a little academic presentation, about 15 minutes, so to set the scene, as I always do, before our main event of a keynote speech. Then we'll have a short break. And after that, we'll start our panel discussion around 10:30. And everybody will get a chance to ask questions, obviously. Then we'll end around noon with lunch and more networking. And now, let me pass the microphone on to the General Counsel of California Lutheran University, Mr. Marvin Richards.
Good morning. How is everyone? I was just telling my table that I'm not used to wearing glasses. I'm still adjusting, but the font is so small. In order to be legible, I have to put on the glasses. So please bear with me. It is truly a pleasure to welcome you to this year's Executive Talent Management Forum. As Vlad mentioned, I'm Marvin Richards. I'm the General Counsel and Vice President of Human Resources at California Lutheran University. And I'm honored to be delivering this message to you on behalf of California Lutheran University's President, Dr. John Nunes, who unfortunately could not be with us here today. First, I'd like to extend a heartfelt thank you to our incredible organizer, Vlad Vaiman. Everybody, please, round of applause for Vlad. Vlad's vision and dedication continue to make this forum a cornerstone for thought leadership and talent management. Vlad, your commitment to bringing together minds that shape the future of work is deeply appreciated. I had the privilege of attending a previous executive talent management forum, and I can say without a doubt, it was captivating, insightful, and energizing. The conversation sparked ideas that stayed with me long after the event ended, and I'm confident this year will be no different. At California Lutheran University, you notice I have to make the Cal Lutheran plug here. California Lutheran University, we pride ourselves in preparing our students not just for jobs, but for leadership roles in organizations like yours. We understand the future of work demands more than technical skills. It requires adaptability, it requires resilience, and it requires the ability to thrive in chaos. In fact, one of my favorite lines from Tom Peters' book, Thriving on Chaos, he says, "Excellent firms don't believe in excellence, only in constant improvement and constant change." That mindset is embedded in how we teach students here and how we lead and prepare our students. As someone who leads both human resources and serves as general counsel, I sit at a unique intersection of law, strategy, people, and policy. This lens has given me a front row seat to the evolving dynamics of workforce planning, leadership development, and organizational resilience. This year's theme, talent management and workforce agility, preparing for uncertain futures, could not be more timely. We live in an era where uncertainty is not a disruption, it's a constant. But with uncertainty comes opportunity. I had a great opportunity to talk to Izora a few minutes ago, and I asked her, "What do you do?" And she says, "I do some consulting work, I do a variety of different works," and she mentioned 2 of her clients. And I said, "Izora, it just so happens I'm going to talk about 2 of your clients." Those 2 clients being Netflix. Consider Netflix once a DVD rental service. It saw the writing on the wall, right? It looked and said, the library style of renting movies is not going to work. And they went and they started doing mail delivery. And they realized that mail delivery wasn't the future either, right? They pivoted and they went to online streaming. And from there, original content. Today, Netflix is leading. That's the power of talent management and organizational agility. It's not about moving people, it's about moving forward. The other client was Amazon. Amazon, what began as an online bookstore, is now a global leader in cloud computing, logistics, and AI. Think about what Amazon was 10 years ago. Nobody thought about AWS, right? They pivoted. This wasn't just about vision, it was about agility, talent mobility, and willingness to evolve. Forums like this one that we're attending today are essential because they help us challenge assumptions and build networks that support bold ideas. I thank you for being part of this journey. Let's make the most of our time, and thank you for attending this forum. Gerhard?
Now it's another distinct pleasure to introduce to you the Dean of the School of Management at California Lutheran University, Dr. Gerhard Apfelthaler.
Let me tell you, he not always says that it's a pleasure to work with me and introduce me. Where's the mouse, Vlad? In here? Okay. So, agility. Whether it's politics or the economy or technology, we definitely live in an interesting world today, as you've already heard. Luckily, you have academics, you have universities that come up with fancy terms to describe what's going on around us, and VUCA is the fancy term that academics use these days to describe the environment in which we live in. So VUCA, of course, stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. It's a pretty good descriptor of what's going on around us, right? And it's no secret, and it's not a surprise either, that the workforce and leaders feel disoriented, confused, surprised, frustrated, and maybe unprepared for that world. But again, luckily, we have academia and we have deans that have nothing better to do than to come up with new fancy words. And so I thought I'll come up with a descriptor that gives you an indication of where I think we need to go as an institution of higher education. We need to be LOCO, right? What do I mean? We need to be learning obsessed. I am deeply convinced that our job in higher education is not teaching. It's certainly not teaching yesterday's content with yesterday's pedagogy. We're in a business of preparing students for the future by obsessing over their learning and over our own learning. We need agility in responding to the volatility of our external environment at the levels of staff, faculty, and as an organization itself. And we do that by obsessing over true learning for our students. We also need to be outcomes driven. In an ambiguous landscape, clarity comes from a relentless focus on outcomes, not just the usual yardsticks that we use in academia, but measured by student success, employability, social mobility, and social impact. We must define, pursue, measure, and communicate the real-world value that higher education has to deliver these days. And we need to be connected. Complex challenges demand diverse perspectives and cross-functional thinking. Being connected means being collaborative and tearing down the internal silos that academia has built for a long time between disciplines, between departments, and tearing down the walls also with the outside world, the walls to government, to industry, and nonprofit organizations around us. And we need to be open. To navigate the uncertainty, we must remain open to experimentation. It must be okay to fail. It must be okay to acknowledge that, especially in today's VUCA world, we don't always know what is best. And we need to include piloting new pedagogical approaches, embracing alternative credentials, testing new business models, and accepting that not all experiments will succeed, but they will teach us something about the work that we're supposed to do. So at the School of Management, we're already trying to do that. We are constantly innovating our programs, constantly trying to bring new content to our students, embracing artificial intelligence, of course, but we also need your help, the help of the world around us, to understand what the real needs are in the workforce that we need to educate for. So, and we're hoping that the Executive Talent Management Forum is the ideal place for us to learn from you. And in that, I also thank my colleague, Dr. Vaiman, for the 10th time for organizing this forum so that we can tear down those walls, learn, and become a little more LOCO as an organization. Thank you very much, and with that I can hand it back to my colleague Dr. Vlad Vaiman, who is not only an expert in talent management, a globally recognized expert in talent management, but he also heads up our MBA, Executive MBA, and Masters in Management programs, and for more than 20 years he's been a good friend and a sparring partner. Please welcome Dr. Vaiman.
And now, once again, let me introduce to you the Dean. No, that's okay. We can play this all day long. However, what we're going to do next, ladies and gentlemen, is, as I promised, I'm going to go ahead and set up. I'm going to wear my glasses, first of all. Marvin also started very recently. And set the scene of our forum, give you a few thoughts, food for thoughts, a few pieces of food, if you will, and try to set our expectations for the keynote speech that is upcoming and our panel. So now I'm going to talk about getting ready for uncertain futures by leveraging talent mobility and workforce agility. The world around us, as my previous speakers just mentioned, is shifting rapidly, geopolitically, technologically, socially. If organizations treat agility as a side project, I want you to kind of pay attention to this, they risk to fall behind. But if they embed it in culture, processes, the leadership mindsets, they position themselves to thrive. Think of how many companies from the Fortune 500 list you can think of right now that existed in 2000, 25 years ago, but it's gone today. The difference often is not strategy. It's whether the workforce was agile enough to adapt. For context, a few definitions. Mobility, already losing my voice. Mobility is about helping employees move fluidly across roles, functions, and projects. Agility, on the other hand, is about building a workforce that doesn't panic in disruption, but adapts rather to those disruptions. Here's a useful metaphor, perhaps, for you. Mobility is like moving chess pieces around the board, but agility is teaching those pieces new moves, thereby creating a completely new game, changing the game itself, if you will. Companies like HSBC, for example, Hong Kong Shanghai Banking Corporation, have created career pathways where an operations specialist in India, for example, can rotate into digital banking in London. That's mobility. At the same time, HSBC trains employees to handle shifts in regulatory technology, and that's agility. To see why this is urgent, let's quickly examine the disruption leaders are navigating today. We're living in an age where disruption is pretty much constant. Supply chain shocks, inflationary swings, geopolitical conflicts, pandemics, not listed, but let's not forget about those, and AI breakthroughs that rewrite job descriptions worldwide, and pretty much overnight. Think about these examples. When the Suez Canal was blocked in 2021 by the Houthis, it didn't just delay goods. It caused ripple effects across industries. Or consider ChatGPT's emergence. In less than 12 months after its release, entire industries began questioning how marketing, legal, and even educational roles should be redefined. Employees, meanwhile, now expect flexibility and well-being as non-negotiables. In many surveys, for example, younger professionals rate flexibility higher than compensation expectations. So leaders today, therefore, must adapt faster than their predecessors ever imagined. Skills become obsolete in 3 to 5 years, sometimes even quicker. Entire business models pivot within quarters, not decades as before. Marvin gave an excellent example of Netflix. Again, they moved from DVD rentals to streaming, to producing original content, and now to gaming experiments. Each pivot like that required retooling talent in real time. And shortages persist, ladies and gentlemen. It's not just about numbers, it's also about mismatches. Take Germany, for example. It faces shortage of skilled nurses despite record numbers of graduates in unrelated fields. Leaders must learn to orchestrate, not only organization leaders, but also, of course, the governments, need to learn to orchestrate workforce of employees, full-timers, gig workers, and algorithmic systems. It's not one or another. It's a whole orchestra. Meeting these challenges requires a profound shift away from rigid jobs to fluid skills. Traditional job descriptions, those of you working in HR, they know pretty well, are like boxes. They're neat, but at the same time, they're fixed and very inflexible. On the other hand, the skills-based models allow for rapid redeployment. Again, Amazon, we always give examples of big companies, but they are really something that we can learn from. When COVID hit, they reskilled warehouse associates into logistics and customer support roles within weeks. That agility, by the way, came from focusing on what skills employees had and not their job titles. What is the lesson here? The lesson is that companies must invest in continuous upskilling and treat reskilling as an ongoing business process and not just as a one-time intervention. Also, internal talent marketplaces, many companies, small and large, work with internal talent marketplaces. They're also transforming mobility with the help of artificial intelligence. Take Unilever. Their Flex Experience platform connects employees to projects across the company, helping them grow while solving business needs. Within 2 years, 30,000 employees used this Flex Experiences platform to take on stretch assignments, reducing external hiring costs significantly. Don't forget that such platforms also boost engagement. Employees feel recognized for their skills beyond their current role. But beyond marketplaces, ladies and gentlemen, agility also demands rethinking how work itself is structured. So flexibility is not just about hybrid or remote setups that we're used to right now. Though those remain essential, don't get me wrong. It's also about cross-training. So employees can wear multiple hats, as many of us do. And also it's about agile staffing, where project-based teams form and dissolve quickly as needed. I like to think of it like sports. Some players are versatile enough to play different positions depending on the opponent. So organizations should train their workforce in the same way. Yes, it's not easy. Yes, it takes effort up front, but it pays off in the long run. Spotify, a company that everybody's familiar with, uses squads. I don't like the name, the squads, but that's what they use. Cross-functional teams that reassemble for each product challenge. That model allows them to ship new products and services at a greater speed. Again, talking about gig economy, we had a whole forum a few years back on the gig economy and so-called extended workforce. Freelancers, contractors, consultants. It's not a side note anymore. Very interestingly enough, ladies and gentlemen, perhaps you didn't know that, studies showed that nearly 30% of Fortune 100 companies and their workforces are contingent. So 30% of companies' workforces are consisting of freelancers, contractors, consultants, etc. There are definite advantages to that, of course. You get specialized talent fast and probably at a lower cost because they're contractors, right? But there are huge disadvantages as well. Cultural integration and loyalty can suffer. Organizational culture, therefore, can suffer. Pharmaceutical companies often bring in freelance biostatisticians for clinical trials. The challenge here is ensuring these gig experts align with organizational culture and quality standards. That's why blended models, mixing employees, full-timers, right, gig workers and algorithms, don't forget about AI, are becoming the norm in big pharma. Of course, agility isn't just about external sourcing. It's about cultivating and training talent that you already have. High potentials want clarity. If they don't see clear career paths, they'll simply get up and leave. Transparent career paths, tailored mentorship, and growth-oriented cultures are the tools. Adobe, for example, created so-called check-ins, replacing annual reviews. And by the way, this is something that many companies are doing right now. From my research around the world, that's what I see. Replacing annual reviews with ongoing conversations about goals and developments. Ongoing being the key word here. This shifted focus to growth, which dramatically improved retention of high potential talent. Organizations, and that relates to what Gerhard recently said, organizations that tolerate mistakes are, as part of learning, tend to retain their rising stars. Think of Google's famous fail fast culture. Technology is vital, but human connection is irreplaceable, and it's going to remain irreplaceable. Mentorship and coaching accelerate agility by helping employees navigate change. Again, an example, consider Toyota's sensei tradition. Sensei in Japanese, I think, means teacher, right? Mentor. Where experienced experts mentor new engineers to pass down tacit knowledge. Or reverse mentoring, where younger staff share digital insights, for example, with older leaders. Trust building in remote teams also matters. During the pandemic, GitLab, a fully remote company, emphasized virtual coffee chats, team building rituals to maintain cohesion. Let's now briefly examine where algorithms can support and sometimes complicate decisions in human resource management in more general terms, and talent management in more specific terms. There are obviously huge opportunities behind algorithmic people management. And it's not about replacing humans, ladies and gentlemen. It's not about replacing humans. It's about amplifying them. I really like this word, amplification. AI can screen resumes, of course, faster. This is just a very basic thing they do. Match skills to project, and even forecast attrition risks. Unilever, again, is a good example here. Their AI-driven hiring tools reduce screening time, listen to this, by 75%, while increasing candidate diversity. When applied ethically, algorithmic HR becomes a co-pilot, freeing professionals, HR, talent management professionals, to focus on strategic things and empathy too. Don't forget about empathy. There are obviously some risks related to algorithmic people management. Opacity, fairness concerns, employee distrust, across cultures, by the way. If people feel that they're being judged and evaluated by a black box, morale will suffer. A famous cautionary tale, speaking of Amazon, at some point they had to scrap its AI recruiting tool when it was found to be biased against female applicants. Because the algorithm was trained on a set of examples from most successful applicants for a certain position, all of whom happened to be men. So the algorithm thought that the ultimate candidates should be male and therefore rejected most female applications. So this shows the importance of transparency, A, and human oversight, B. The key here is this: treat algorithms, however good they may be, as assistants and not as independent agents. I've just shown you both pros and cons in tech. Let's briefly talk about the pandemic and lessons it gave us about agility in practice. And we have Dr. Sherman on our panel, who can also relate to that more than any one of us, perhaps. COVID forced organizations to test their agility under pressure. Remote onboarding became the default at some point. Companies realized succession planning must go deeper than just C-suite. Hospitals redeployed non-essential staff to frontline roles. Universities pivoted professors into online teaching in a matter of days, sometimes weeks, but mostly days. By the way, School of Management has taught online courses since 2009. So for us, it was just, we pivoted on a dime, basically, there. But for some, it took a long time. These were crisis-driven projects that doubled also as leadership development for many employees, right? Never waste a good crisis, as they say. Another thing I wanted to mention is future-proofing. Future-proofing requires a culture of lifelong learning. Tools include micro-learning applications, digital credentials, and partnerships with universities. And we're always open to such partnerships, ladies and gentlemen. PwC, for example, launched a digital fitness app for their employees worldwide, encouraging bite-sized daily learnings. IBM's digital badges program lets employees showcase micro-credentials externally, boosting employability while serving the company. So what can practitioners, you, can do next week or even tomorrow maybe to start building this agility, ladies and gentlemen? So this is basically for immediate action. Number one, audit workforce agility. Think about shifting from rigid jobs to skills model. Number two, launch or pilot internal marketplaces. Leverage your artificial intelligence tools to connect skills to opportunities within the company. Invest in measurable upskilling, number three. Number four, broaden strategies to include gig and contingent workers. Think of it, I really like this metaphor. Think of it like upgrading your own operating system. Don't wait for the big version 10.0 release. Just start with patches and updates that improve agility bit by bit. There are good case studies and business cases that you can research and use as sources for inspiration. Companies like Nestle that used internal platforms to redeploy more than 2,000 employees during the pandemic. Novartis, big pharma, is another good example. They rolled out a large upskilling in digital medicine. Unilever, once again, shows the power of blended workforce models. What is the takeaway here, my friends? If these large, extremely complex organizations can adapt, so can small organizations, and often even faster, because they're more agile, more nimble. These examples highlight what leaders must do strategically, but I'll leave you here with 3 imperatives that I suggest every organizational leaders take into account. Number 1, see your talent as dynamic and adaptable, not fixed. And here you have, what you need to do, instructions. Balance technology with human connection. Don't treat your algorithms, again, as independent judges. Build agility into the culture, not just processes. By instilling a culture of continuous learning, it says they're empowering employees to thrive in uncertain environments, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Last point. I feel that the future belongs to companies that embed agility into their DNA. Start small, act fast, and scale wisely. And the final thought. Disruption is not slowing down, ladies and gentlemen. The organizations that will thrive are those that see uncertainty not as a threat, but as an invitation to mobilize talent in completely new ways. Thank you very much. And now, I would like to present our keynote speaker. So let me introduce Igzora Aristigueta Becerra. Igzora Aristigueta Becerra is Vice President of People and Workplace Experience at the Sobrato organization, where she leads the organization's efforts to foster an exceptional employee experience. Igzora oversees talent management, people operations, and workplace experience. In addition, she is responsible for driving strategies that attract, retain, and develop top talent while ensuring operational compliance and an inclusive workplace culture. She brings over 24 years of HR experience across the nonprofit, philanthropy, and healthcare sectors. Her previous roles include significant tenures at the Conrad Hilton Foundation, CARE, and the Center for the Visually Impaired in Atlanta, Georgia. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Igzora Aristigueta Becerra.
Everyone, can you hear me well? Yes, perfect. It's a very formal setting. So I work in Silicon Valley where we are deans and we're very casual. So forgive me for my trying to adjust to this environment, but I am very grateful to be here speaking with you and sharing something that is very real for all of us, which is how do we navigate these uncertain times with so much disruption going around, recovering from the pandemic, and how do we lead our teams in the organization. So this being a keynote speaker it's out of my comfort zone, because I'd much rather be in the midst of the chaos, figuring out how do we navigate this together and how do we make our organization and our people that matter the most, our biggest asset, navigate these uncertainty times. I'm that one behind the scene creating the stage and strategy and supporting and developing and being involved and in front of, and also owning some of the decisions our leadership makes as well, right? We talked about that, Marvin. And so I am grateful to be here and sharing what we're doing and how we're responding. So today I'll share who we are as an organization. Many of you might not know who the Sobrato organization is, the reality of the disruption that's causing at the workplace. Defining agility for us. So I'll go into depth into how we're navigating and what we're doing at TSO, our approach, why this matters now more than ever before, and then how we look ahead together. Before I dive in, I wanted to just share a little bit about who I am and where my name comes from. So my name, Igzora, is actually a plant. My grandmother had a nursery and loved gardening. She couldn't name me Jasmine. She couldn't name me Lily or Rose. She had to name me Exora. I was born in Venezuela, raised in South Florida. And Exora grows a lot. So everybody in Florida knows who Exora is because I'm at Home Depot in the gardening section. But here in California, they don't grow much. So that's a little bit about who I am. I had 24 years of experience in HR practitioner, been in both sectors, for-profit and nonprofit. Once I discovered the nonprofit sector, I never went back to the for-profit sector until I met TSO, who has a very unique set of work. So the Sobrato organization is a family-owned, multi-generational organization started first with real estate development. Seems over 70 years now, and now has 3 different enterprises. We are composed of the real estate development arm of the business, then we have the capital team, and then the philanthropy side. I support all of the different enterprises. I'm part of the HR team who supports all of them. So I get to be in the trailers with the construction team and trained in where there's loud noise, and I get to be with the investment team, the very nice suite in SF, looking at the Golden Bridge. So I get to do both sides of the business, and really unique set of skills that you need to adapt to each of the employees that you work with. The Sobrato organization, the real estate development side of it, focuses on commercial building. We have over 60 commercial buildings, about 6 million square foot in the Silicon Valley. Some of the notable tenants of ours are Google, Facebook, Netflix, Amazon, Airbnb, and so they rent their facilities from us, and we manage those rent. We also have 35 multifamily residential units, and also 4 affordable housing in the Bay Area. We also have on the 35 multifamily units all over the West Coast, not just in the Silicon Valley. And then our philanthropy work is really based in the Bay Area. We do a lot of work with affordable housing, economic mobility. We also have 4 nonprofit centers that we literally have in the area from SF to San Jose. And these buildings are really given to the community for grassroots organizations to rent at a very low cost so that we can activate our economic mobility efforts. So I get to see both sides of the business, and it's a privilege to me to be part of this family. So with what Vlad shared, the economy, politics, content, there is so much disruption going on right after the pandemic that we are living at this moment. And so it's a really difficult time to be leaders, to get in front of our people and show up with resilience and be able to lead them and navigate this certain time. So agility is not a nice thing to have, it's a must opportunity for us as leader. So I'm gonna just a little pulse check. How many of you have felt fatigue in the past 6 months? Just raise your hand. Just perfect. Not only is it our staff, it's us as well, right? Sometimes it's hard for you to balance sustainability, the speed of things, and sustain a healthy well-being. How many of you have felt that it's a hard challenge for you as well? I give my space, so as leaders, do you make space to share what their challenges are? Do we feel comfortable creating those spaces? Raise your hands if you do that at your organization. See, here we have less hands, right? Sometimes we don't want to get into these discussions because we don't want to talk about what the politics how it's affecting us. We don't want to talk about any challenges that they may have because we're not sure how we're going to handle those conversations, right? So that's a common denominator across the organizations that I work in for sector in either sector of the side. For us at TSO, we worked really hard in 2024 defining what agility looked like. So we came up with the strategy that developing key skills will be incredibly beneficial for us and pathways that will lead us to building resilience. And so for us, we I'll share our approach. There's a host of items that we have been working on for the past years, but I'm going to focus today on the organizational development aspect of it. And before I jump in to talk about our approach, our strategy that we created for 2025 up to 2027, I want to give a little more context, background of how we got to this strategy. And part of it is mainly working in 2024, identifying what are the gaps that we have at the organization. Is it leadership gap? Is it upskilling or reskilling skills across the organization? Are we paying our staff? Are we being competitive? How is our compensation philosophy? Are we being transparent about how we pay staff as well? And so we did a host of inventory audit. And in 2024, we worked really hard on building the C-suite. First, focusing on developing their skill sets. So we identify a coach that has been working with our executive team. We also develop a second layer of, we call them SLT, the senior leadership team. And then also work on developing their skill sets. And then the idea is that we focus on the top, developing their skills before we come and reach out to the whole organization. And that has been incredibly successful. There is a commitment. First of all, before I continue sharing, it is critical for us as leaders to have the C-suite buy-in. So it's very important for us to have them acknowledge and be aware that this is critical for them to lead their organization, to first step back and do some inward inventory check in where they need to grow as leaders so that they can be more impactful leading the organization. So that has been going very well. So that's the first step we took before we draft our strategy. The second one is that we've been working on pay transparency. So we committed to doing market assessments every 3 years to ensure that we are being competitive and we're paying our staff living wages. It is very expensive to live in California, as you know. So it is, while it's great to build agility and create a development plan, we must pay our employees fairly in order for them to stay motivated as well. And then the Gallup survey shows that 45% of our employees don't have the time to learn. So as an HR practitioner in 24 years, I've seen the best benefits out there. From the going back to school, $5,250, because that's what the IRS allows you to give. And then also from more generous benefits. And the reality is when we look at utilization as an HR practitioner, very low utilization. Most employees don't utilize these benefits. Why? Because they don't have time. And so we looked at the Gallup survey from 2024. 41% of the employees are the only ones who take advantage of that benefit. And so for that reason, we decided, let's bring the development inside. So let's create a strategy and ensure that we have a strategy across the organization, that we're all learning a shared language and a shared skill sets together at the same time. And that's how we came up with this strategy. So in 24, our team worked on identifying the path. So we talked about skills, pathways, and to build resilience, the pathways. So what are the systems that we need in process to also facilitate the development for all of our employees? So we looked into a platform where we decided on Lattice. We looked at 15.5, Culture AMP, and we landed in Lattice being one of the best platforms to facilitate that process. And if you want to talk later, I can share a lot more about Lattice. So that's been a kind of a pathway for us in HR to develop our employees. And so we created this strategy, which the goal that in 24, we built our senior leaders development skill sets. In 2025, we worked on building trust, being able to give and receive feedback, and bring clarity around the organization. And I'll share each of the years what we've been doing. 26, our plans for next year are to really use the GPA model, which is that growth mindset, psychological safety, and accountability. It's a training module framework that it's incredible, and very useful to build trust and develop a growth mindset across the organization. The second piece of 2026 will be very heavy on well-being, and I'll share some data around that. I work with two excellent partners who do an amazing job, Expert Matters. Two of them have PhDs in their areas on well-being and then leadership development, who come in-house and provide all those trainings. And then in 2027, the goal is that we'll have clear pathways of career pathways. Everybody at work, we conduct every 3 months different pulse surveys. Some of the feedback we got from our staff is, we are excited that you're investing in our development, that you are paying us fairly, because we've been very transparent about where they're paid, what the market pays, and where they are within their range. And so we can see an engagement because of that transparency. They have asked, what does a career path look for us? We're not a large organization, so we can't promise what we don't have. So we're creating more lateral movements. So we're going to be working on creating those pathways. Mentorship programs, that's why we worked in 24 and 25 in early leaderships, so that by 27 they can be mentors of rising leaders. And then continuing to focus on the well-being. So now going to the program that we launched this year. So we specifically divided a program into two cohorts. We call them the rising leaders, which are a group of staff who don't have managerial responsibilities. And then we have our people leader, who are including the ELT and SLT, part of these cohort groups. Then we have core competencies that we're sharing in 2025 this year to develop that growth mindset development. We're using self-assessments to bring awareness to who we are and how we're perceived, where our strengths are and where there's opportunities. For everyone across the organization, we use Enneagram and we use Clifton Strength. Some of you might be familiar. There's DISC. There's so many assessments that you can do out there. But that's just to ground us and to bring awareness. A lot of trainings on emotional intelligence from Dr. Daniel Goleman. Some of you might know his work. How to give and receive feedback, trust building, and then in order to enhance the culture across the organization. Some of the models we use on building trust, for example, is the model framework from Dr. Brené Brown on bravery, on how to restore and rebuild trust. SCARV, which is from David Rock, on behavior, human behavior, to understanding how we behave when we see threat. And then the radical candor from Kim Scott, which is popular for quite a few years now, on how to give feedback in a way that it lands well and it's productive. And then SBI model and situational leadership. So all of these trainings that we're sharing across the organization. This is a picture from our first cohort from the leadership, from the people leader, back in May. We also were very specific about the timing. If you ask anybody at the organization, are you busy all the time? Raise your hand. Like, you're constantly busy. You're always in meetings, right? So it's never a right time to launch a program. So I specifically worked with our strategy VP and then all of the C-level to look at their calendars, their board meetings, and figuring out the time when we're not doing budget, we're not closing the year. So it worked out that it's between May and October the best time for me to launch this program. So that's what we did. So there's a lot of this intention behind the program. The district learning. So our people leader, our meeting, I asked and I had support from our leadership team, and that's very critical. They are there. All of our C-suite, our CEO, our CFO, they're present in these sessions. They attend these sessions. So that's very critical for this program to be also very successful. So we committed to only asking them for 4 hours, 5 times a year during this period. And they all said, yes, we will be there. We attended. We have had about 85% attendance. Just this week yesterday, we had a training. We had a little bit less because there was some traveling, but the commitment is there. How we do it too is, so we have the 4 sessions, the 5 sessions that are half a day on Wednesday, because that's when we work from home. We also do a makeup session via Zoom so that they can get at least the content, and if they can't attend the Zoom session, then we do a recording. And then we do have some learning pots in between, what we call in lunch, in between, so that we can sustain some of the learning. In addition to this, we have integrated LinkedIn Learning, and then some e-learning. We use the 70-20-10 model of learning. 70% of what we learn comes from the job, in the job doing it, 20% from mentoring, and the other 10% from literature or books. We also align what we're sharing with both groups as well. And then we're intention about how inclusive we are about the trainings that we're offering. In 2026, so I'm actually working on planning that, the specific program curriculums for next year using the GPA and using the wellness program, really heavy on the understanding of what well-being is. So well-being is not just being able to show up and be on time at work, and then giving outputs to the organization and meeting your targets and your goals, but also making sure that while you're there, you are showing up in a way that is engaging, that is encouraging, that is motivating your teams. And so in order to do that, we have to have a really good, what I call, some good habits on sleeping and eating. And so we're going to focus a lot on developing that wellness, particularly around the leadership team. And so that's kind of our plan for next year. And then in 2027, we were really focused, and the plan for 2027, creating the career pathline, is actually happening. Like, we're working behind the scene by doing that. Vlad talked about job descriptions. Sometimes they're absolute, sometimes they capture the essence of what you do, but then they change, right? Because we evolve. The work changes, our partners or grantees change, the construction sites programs change. And so for that reason, we tend to do many things that are not captured in the job description. So I'm constantly working now with each of the teams, updating those job descriptions, creating identifying what those core competencies are so that they can be more agile within their roles, and then mapping out what a growth path can look like. Because we're lean, we're also thinking outside and thinking about stretch assignments or learning from the other side of the business as an incentive so that they can have more skills within their areas that they are expert in. And then the mentorship program, which we're building that capacity now in 24, 25, and 26, so that we can continue to mentor those rising leaders at the organization, share knowledge across the organization, and continue to develop well-being and belonging behaviors like having lunch, like not emailing after hours or after, because we need that recovery time in order to be have a peak high performance across the organization. So that's going to be a focus in 2027. Why does this matter? Why does well-being matter? Why investing in development at the organizations matter for us? The Gallup data, this data came from 2024, is that 30% of employees, only 30% of employees are engaged. This is a record low in 10 years since 2015. And so for that reason, and the reason behind the Gallup survey report came is that low engagement ultimately affects how we adapt, how we respond as employees and leaders across the organization. So there is a big responsibility for us as leaders in organizations to bring clarity to employees, to care for their well-being, and to develop, stimulate their development across the organization. This is how people are feeling, and I wonder what the data is going to say for this year. Here's a resilience chart that you can see on the vertical side, the performance, and then over time. And so we learned that, and you can. This is very applicable also to people who are athletic. You work out, you rest in order to recover. That's where you build the most muscle. It's the same thing. So the red dotted line is resilience without recovery, without sleeping well, eating well, taking breaks in between meetings, without taking care of connecting with your community, with your family. This is how performance peaks. And then you can see the green dotted line where stress and recovery combined is the ultimate optimal performance. So when you're able to do both, because we need both in order to be resilient, You go through stress, like a cycle. You go to stress, you tap into your resilience, you go back to recovery. So this is critical for us as leaders and as we lead our organizations. Let's check in a little bit. How many of you had done during vacation, taking your laptops and your phones? See the hands up there. I will be honest and say I did it. I was just on vacation last month, and I did take my laptop, and I did one day of work. And so we tend to do this. These are bad habits that we have. How many of you have meetings back to back all day? How many of you feel guilty sometimes for not checking emails or not being connected and taking a break? We are all guilty of it. And these are behaviors that are so ingrained in our culture, in the U.S. culture. So I was in Spain visiting my cousins, and they said to me, "What do you mean? Sit down and eat your food. You can't walk and eat at the same time. Are you looking at the colors in your food?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about? This is like, I can walk and eat." It's just a different culture. We're so wired this way. I came back and I said, "Oh my God, how do I infuse this into our leaders? They don't even get to eat sometimes." Sometimes my chief people officer, who respect so much, I bring her lunch to her desk so that she can eat like 5 minutes in between. So this is the culture that we have. So this is why it's very important for us to keep this whole person approach, because it is interconnected into how we perform and show up at work and how we lead our teams. So this is a big focus for us at the Hilton, at the Sobrato organization. Creating a psychological safety. In order for us to be agile and to be resilient, we have to feel safe making risk. We have to feel safe making mistakes, trying new things. In order to adopt AI, how does that look like at the workplace? People need to try different things. They might not get it right, but we need to be able to create a space where they can try out, learn from it, and move forward. And to do that, they have to feel safe in the work environment. This perfectionist culture is not sustainable. It will not also produce an environment where we can be agile in responding to what's coming and what's happening. The Gallup data shows us that people want to be engaged. People want to be taken care of, to develop in the organizations, to be seen for who they are and what they bring to the organization. And then this will bring resilience across the organization for us. And for us, it's been a focus. And I am very fortunate to say that our CEO, Tony Mestres, is behind all of this. My role was created intentionally to work on this. First, when he interviewed me, among others, but he said to me in particular, he says, "This role is critical in our culture. You need to be able and feel comfortable to hold me accountable and call me out when I am not modeling these behaviors." That's when I said, "Oh, I hope I get this job," because I've been looking, I've been looking to work for someone who who walks the talk, who is committed to their people and committed to developing and improving himself. So that makes a big difference in the work that we do as HR practitioners. Lessons and honesty about 2024 work. So far, what our program has done is there is a momentum across the organizations. We have team channels, and we have created team channels for people leader and rising leaders. People are sharing, last Brené Brown, she was in a podcast. People are sharing articles, people are sharing things that are relevant. Someone shared a Gallup survey that just recently came up about how engaged people are. There's a great momentum across the organization, and we're really happy to see that. What the challenge is sustaining that. So news will come that impact our tariffs, will impact how we build and how we need to adjust, or the communities we serve, because it's very directly impacted our immigrant community, which we work really closely in the economic mobility at Silicon Valley. And then we have our staff who are drained, who are frustrated. And so that's a challenge, sustaining the learning, sustaining the well-being, while our environment that we cannot control challenges us. And then ongoing for us will be making sure that we're very inclusive about what we offer. And then their well-being. One of the items that we also forgot to share, aside from the systems and pay transparency, which is a host of different things that you have to do in organizations, is that we also included for our staff a professional development that is outside of the go back to school, get an MBA or a PhD, which is great to do, but also to continue developing yourself. And that is including $3,000 to each of your employee. You can use these funds to go get coaching. I created a coaching guide, vetted coaches, negotiated rates, created a whole program. So now when we just had our mid-year check-in, I did it a little bit later intentionally because we set goals a little bit late this year. And we're able to say, utilize your coaching. Contact HR. There's this guy that can help you. This is the format. And it holds managers accountable. Ultimately, we should be the ones coaching her, but sometimes external coaches is needing. So there's a host of different things that we need to do in the organization in order to sustain resilience and agility. While we look ahead, we don't have this all figured out. There are things that we're already making some adjustments to the leadership program for next year, because after each session, we do surveys to hear how is it landing, how are you feeling. Very responsive, critical feedback that it's been useful for us. Shorter, faster, more insight, more learning, bring us book, get us audible. And so we're constantly adapting and responding and giving feedback back. We will continue to learn, we'll continue to make mistakes through the process together, but being transparent with our employees. And I can't wait to what the panel discussions will lead to. And I want to thank you for the time, for this moment, for this space. I want to leave some time for any questions that you may have for me.
We do have a little bit of time left, so if you have any questions for either Exor or myself, before the break, we'll be happy to entertain them. There's a question, so we need to probably speak into the mic.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that excellent presentation. I'm curious what type of surveys you do with your employees to measure the success of the cultural change. I mean, you have a huge agenda of change there. And my second question, it's actually two-part, is how transparent to the workforce is this development of the senior leadership team? Thank you.
Yes, of course. So the first question on how do we take a pulse and measure feedback and how they are responding is after each session, we have a pulse service through Lattice. I mentioned the Lattice platform. Right. And completely anonymous, and then they share feedback. What I do is in the next session of the training, I first go on previously on, remember where we left off in the last training, here's what we heard you say, here's what we did, and then I move forward and ask. Because we've been doing this, the pulse service, people are like, when is the person who's gonna go out? Because they know we're gonna be listening to it, applying some of it. And there's been, for example, there's two things that they have asked. We said, we can't do that this year. But we went back and were transparent about what we can and we cannot do. So that's kept engagement through that process. The second part of your question?
The second question was the transparency to the workforce with regard to the leadership development. Thank you.
Yes, so I mentioned Tony Mesters, our CEO. And the beginning of the year, so when I kicked off this development program, he was presenting with me alongside. And he shared how he trusted this program, that he was participating in this program, and then he voluntarily shared. And we've been working with our own coaches. Last year we worked on the coaches that just finished in May, their program. And now we're also integrating ourselves to this program and participating and holding ourselves accountable so that we can use a common shared knowledge. Sometimes I'm in meetings and they share the Brené Brown Bravery, and they'll share, well, I'm setting some boundaries here. And some people will say, well, this isn't a vault, so we can't talk about this. It's a safe space. So they're now using a common language, and his support has been incredible.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Good morning, and thank you for the wonderful, information. Really, I think it's applicable to most of us. The question that I had was more strategy, and how the two cohorts were decided. How were they chosen? Did everybody have to participate, or was it an optional thing? What did you do to motivate the participation?
Yes. So we require participation. And so how we decided is it was easier to focus heavier. So the learning for the people leader are 3 to 4 hours, 5 times a year. For the rising leaders, which are individuals without managerial responsibilities, it's an hour and a half. The idea was that they get some micro learning in the concepts of the learning so that we can sustain that learning across the organization and use that common language. So that was my thinking behind the strategy. The second piece of it, we did make it required. When they cannot make it, then we have the makeup and then the Zoom setup. And then we also added it to Lattice, part of our goals, the attendance and participation, and they're required to invest in your own development. And because most of them share last year, by the way, in survey that I did, we don't have time to use all these benefits. So we now said, we brought it to you. They're in-house, they're here for you. So, and then the support from leadership senior leadership has been critical too.
Can you share a little bit more about your structured mentoring programs, what that looks like? Are you finding mentors for those in your organization? Are they finding their own mentors? And is it structured or a little bit more free-flowing?
For the coaching program?
You mentioned mentorship as well.
So the mentorship program is coming in 2027. And the reason why is because we invested a lot in developing mostly coaching. So leaders are expert matters in their areas. Like our chief of real estate and development, he gets the best deals and makes the most money for TSO. And the people who work in impact and philanthropy are expert, but they're not necessarily experts in how to lead people and coach and mentor people. Those are areas that in 24 years of HR has always been a gap across the organization. They're great at what they do, so what do? We promote them, but we don't develop them so that they can lead and inspire people. So we started first, to answer your question, ensuring that they have built that capacity to be able to coach and mentor. So when we get to 27, our VPs, C-level, and directors and managers, which is why I invested so much on the people leader development, are ready to start doing that mentorship program. And any rising leaders, we could have lots of rising leaders raise their hand to mentor other more junior staff as well.
Yes, I had a comment and a question. The comment was, I love the fact that you mentioned bringing the whole person to work. It is so important, you know. All too often in organizations, we just want the work part of the person, you know, the productivity part, the show up on time person, but so much of the talent lies in their entire life, you know, their entire life experience. So I just wanted to say thank you for mentioning that, because we often forget that. The question I had is, I'm a director of a small business development center. We work with thousands of small businesses. Usually the head of HR is the owner of the business or whoever drew the last straw kind of thing. And they need these kinds of things, but they don't have a lot of resources. Are there some recommendations you can give for those really small businesses that, you know, where should they start as far as?
Yes, absolutely. So I would say that the first is putting aside resources, funding to do this. It does cost money to do this, and so because leadership has said, here's the funds, go ahead and implement this program, create the strategy, and launch it. So that's key. This individual needs to have some funding. Identifying key partners in expert matters and L&D. So I have some L&D. I do employee relations. I wear many hats in HR. I oversee audits for 401ks, lots of different things that I do, recruitment, but identifying expert matters consultants that you can work with that can come in-house to do those, facilitating those trainings. So the funding, identifying key. I work with incredible leaders. I've worked at the Hilton Foundation, at CARE. I bring them even from the East Coast here. I fly them out. So once you know someone who is an incredible designer in implementing organizational development and then the programs and facilitating, I take them with me everywhere. So funding and identifying consultants that can partner with you. We can't do it all, like as HR professionals. We can create the strategy, but we need partners to help us through that process.
And educate yourself.
Yeah.
That's very important.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Nick?
I had a couple of questions for you, and congratulations on finding a CEO who's so supportive of this. That's rare. And then also, congratulations on building out the multi-year plan. My first question is around that $3,000 funding piece that you mentioned for every employee. I suppose because you had a CEO who's so supportive, you might have had buy-in, at least from the very top at the beginning with that.
Absolutely.
But did you get a lot of resistance from others about how that's going to affect the bottom line? Thinking of all the CFOs that I worked with as a head of HR over the years, they all would have thrown up on that idea. So that's I'm curious how you got buy-in from the rest of the people, rest of the leadership. My second question is about metrics. So do you have prior year metrics such as turnover rates and employee engagement survey scores, maybe anything else that you're using as a benchmark, and then do you have commitment to compare those exact same data for future years to see how the results of this program are playing out?
Yep. So on the financial aspect, there were some pushbacks. I was in rooms with very tough conversations, but ultimately our CEO put his foot down and said, we're doing this, we're finding the money to do this and invest in this. Again, his support has been instrumental for this program. The second piece on the data matrix and telling our story, right, through our work, this is the reason why we identify Lattice as a platform. So all of the poll surveys that we are doing after each of the sessions are being documented there. Participation, so we have QRs, they sign in, we can see how many people have been attending. Through the poll surveys, we see what's impacting and what's not. I report out at each of the SLT meetings that we have once a month, how we're doing in progress in building that. We didn't have Lattice last year, so last year what we did an all-staff retreat, and then we did a huge survey there, which helped me map out the 3-year plan. And in response to that survey, we've been able to, I uploaded it and being able to kind of use that data from 24, but I'll continue to build. By 27, I can't wait to see that data. We also, in addition to the organizational development, we strategically have done we've done 4 engagement events. 2 where we volunteer across the community that we service and work with and profit from. And so we've gone through 2 affordable housings and done a lot of rework there. So we did a pulse survey. People felt very connected. People need to feel connected to the mission as well, and the work and the why they're there. So we've done a lot of work around that. And then we have had 3 fun events. Let's just have fun, let's have drinks, let's go out. We've done pulse surveys around those as well. So there's this, we have all staff, all hands, we do surveys after those. So I'm compiling that data to be able to share more at the end of the year, but I'm doing that in small pieces right now.
We'll take 3 more questions.
Oh, hello.
4 more questions. I'm sorry, 4 more questions, and then don't forget that Gerhard will be joining our panel as well, so you will have more questions after the panel, definitely from the audience. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you for supporting your employees. I think that's fantastic. You're being their advocate. But I wanted to know how you're implementing this all strategy in person, co-located, remote, 8 to 5. How is that? Because there's different expectations of employees now than was before. Thank you.
Absolutely. So they're all in person. One of the challenges that we have is that we have the people in the field, we call them people in the field, the construction superintendents, project managers, they can't attend. They can't leave the sites. So they attend the virtual sessions, makeup sessions, most of them. I've negotiated with the VP of commercial real estate construction and that I send at least 1 or 2. And then I gave them also the list of the programs and trainings and topics, and I said, map out exactly who needs to learn more of this and bring that person live in person, because we get to learn the framework and then we have an hour practicing that framework. And so I intentionally invested a lot of time in doing that and pushing for them to really think strategically about their people and who can use more of those trainings. But they're in person. There are challenges around, particularly our construction team. And then there's makeup sessions, and then they can watch the Zoom on it. Yeah, but it's not perfect, but we're getting there.
So that actually perfectly leads into what I wanted to ask, is that do you find that as you push forward for these teams to change and grow, are you finding any resistance back from some of these employees that maybe have been there for a very long time and don't feel like they need to change or evolve? And what do you have anything in line to help you bring them to the front line to help them grow if they're resisting?
Yeah, yes, there is a small group. Yes, and so funny, you reminded me of the change management training that we did. We talked within the spectrum, like the first adopters. So we did an assessment, a change management indicator assessment to see where they are, right? With the intention, and then I gave that prescription to each of the leaders, and I said, when you need buy-in, here's your folks, right? These will be the first adopters. And when you're not sure about making the decision, go to your conservatives to do that. But to answer your question about resilience, push back on adaptation, there's been some. I still have a few actors. We know who they are, who I have to send gentle reminders, who I've gone to them. One of the things I encourage our leadership is talk about it. Find out why is it that they're not there. Is it a family issue? Is it a pick-up or drop-off? Is it just that they don't think there's, value in this, right? And so we're getting there, but there are the usual, what I call usual suspects. Yes, we have them.
Last question, please, from the back.
I'm going to sneak 2 questions in. All right, so my name is Samantha. I apologize, I had to come in late from a prior commitment. My question for you is, my 2 questions. First being, I work a lot with the health of talent pipelines, right? And one of the things that I encounter when I work with a company over time is the lack of continuity in their talent programs. So I'm thrilled for you that you found this CEO. Thrilled for you. How are you, I don't know that you're publicly traded, you may not be, which is part of the challenge with talent continuity in these programs. How are you going to preserve this commitment that you've made to ensure that you have this investment in your employees over time so that you can achieve your long-term goals?
Yeah.
That's first. Yes. Second, easy peasy.
Yeah, that's a big question. Good one and big, right? Yes, I'm very ambitious in the strategy because I have the support of our CEO in reality. That has helped me. But how am I going to sustain the learning and preserve and get to the finish line after the 3 years? Building resilience and agility, figuring out, making some mistakes throughout the process, maybe downsizing some of it, if that's the feedback I hear through then. So I think is being agile and being able to change or adapt anything that comes along the way. It's going to be critical for us, for my team, me and my team. I don't do this alone. I have 3 incredible HR professionals who work with me alongside. And then my chief people officer, who's also incredible supportive. So yeah, I will have to adapt. I will maybe have to make some changes to it. I don't know what the political content is going to do to our business in a few months or next year. So for example, I'll just share, like this year, I had an internship and fellowship program that I was supposed to introduce, which is very close to John Sobrato, who's 82 years old, our founder. He built a school and donated a school and worked with Santa Clara University. And so I was supposed to work on this. This is close to the family. This is important. I couldn't. I had to put that aside and create an immigration response protocol. And then I had to speak with the family and say, this is critical. If ICE comes into any of our construction units, we paralyze our project. We lose lots of money. So I had to hire an attorney, employment attorney, and then an immigration attorney, create a protocol, launch it across, do a risk assessment when ICE comes in, how do we respond? So I responded. So I did have to put some things aside, but I explained why I wasn't able to do some of that. But yes, I don't know what's coming at us next year, but we'll have to adapt.
Well, at least you acknowledge that there's challenges and why. So I appreciate that. Okay, the short question is, your CEO, if you're to identify just a couple of things about this individual that make them so committed, what are they? In their background, their belief system?
Their belief system, huh? That's a good one. So We did, I mentioned Enneagram as a self-assessment and Clifton Strength. All of the C-suite did the Enneagram because the family also loves it. The family has done it. And our CEO is a 2. So if you're familiar with it, 2 wear their hearts in their shoulders and their sleeves. He's very strategic, but he's always worried about his people. He knows that we can't do any of this without them, right? So we have to take care of them. So I think that's a superpower when he says to me, Exorbitant, sometimes I don't sleep, so it's not such a superpower for me sometimes, right? And so that's when we were coaching him to, like, that's when you turn off your phone, that's when you go on a hike. But yeah, that's a skill that he has. He's that servant leadership as an HR professional. He is that type of, I will say, not all of our C-suites are like him, right? Let's be honest. He himself has challenges. I mean, I was in the conversation once and he said, hey, let's stop this discussion. The most important people in our workforce is our staff. Yes, you have to have time to mentor them. Yes, you have time to coach it. So he holds them accountable as well. And so for me, it's that skill set. And it's also, I see some of that impacting in some of those good behaviors being modeled across some of those leaders who don't necessarily have that huge empathy and that EQ skills of listening to people and investing in people. So that's an attribute he has. Yeah.
That's really, you're lucky. I mean, you are lucky. Right? Absolutely. Thank you. A round of applause, please, for Exora. Ladies and gentlemen, let's take a break until 11:15. So we'll start at 10:45 sharp with our wonderful panel. Thank you very much. We'll see you in about 15 minutes.